to share insights on how to transform your workplace with a more efficient and aligned team. Please welcome Kimberly Collins.
Thanks
Thank
so
you for
much for
joining me.
having me. Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Well, I was doing some research on the Enneagram, which I'd like to learn about today. And there was a couple of institutes, the Enneagram Institute, Test Gorilla, Integrative 9, High People, Personality Max, Enneagram Universe. They analysed 189,957 Americans, and they started to identify their Enneagram styles. I also learned
Wow.
that more than 100,000 people complete an Enneagram profile every single month. And this has been happening for 30, 40, 50 years. And
It's
some
a it's a
people are probably
huge
thinking,
project.
I've never even heard of it before.
Absolutely. It's another great personality framework in the world of personality frameworks. And it's exciting because it digs a little bit deeper than some of the other personality frameworks out there. It does require a little bit more upfront commitment to discovering your type, but it's one of the best in the biz for giving you exactly those areas that you can work on and strengthen and grow for
Mm,
yourself and for your team.
mm. And all leaders have to grow. And the reason why I say that is that Harvard University, they recently said that 95% of leaders claim to be emotionally aware. That's what leaders claim. But their team members shake their head and say, no, this is not true. The true reality of it is that only about 10 to 15% of leaders are actually emotionally aware, which means all of us have some growth to do. And I think we've all seen that play out in a business. We look at the leader and we cringe. Oh no, not again.
Absolutely. And as far as like a global, not taking it outside of the leadership area, it's believed that only 36% of the world population would be considered highly emotional intelligence. So, above 80% on that emotional intelligence score, which you can, is a comprehensive score over the four pillars of emotional intelligence, which is self awareness, self management, social awareness, and relationship management. That aggregate score, most people are running around with a C average, even if we think that we have a higher score than we do.
Mm. Even our animals. I have a golden retriever, very emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
I had a French bulldog, less active levels of emotional intelligence. And I'd
Yeah.
always complain to my wife. She said, "You're always fighting with the dog."
Mhm.
I said, I don't think it's me. I think it's the dog." And we went and researched, and they said that golden retrievers are very emotionally intelligent, but the French bulldogs also lack the awareness and the self-regulation.
Yes. It goes to
Enneagram.
show that, yeah, golden retrievers are the most popular breed. Well, it's not the most, but you can see why they are the therapy dogs that we use so much.
Well, in my mind, they're the most popular.
Yeah.
They got to be good if I've got one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I
right.
say
Yeah.
anyway. Maybe
Yes.
I'm lacking some emotional awareness on that one. Enneagram and personality types are not something that most people discover at a young age. It's normally something that they learn as they start to mature in their role. What's your background? You've got a very interesting background. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and you've studied voice for a long time.
Yes. Yep.
You've also
Yes.
been in practice with your own clinic for 11 years. What's this journey that got you to Enneagram?
Yeah, and I always like to say that my journey to Enneagram was a journey of necessity. So I found myself, like a lot of small business owners and specifically dental practice owners, where you find yourself thrown into a situation where you have to develop leadership skills at a very rapid clip. So I was part of a co-owning, co-founding duo. So I'm not the licensed practitioner. I am the CFO, the COO, the taxes, payroll, hiring, firing, training, pretty much anything that didn't require me to glove up and work on someone's teeth is what I did for 11 years. And my journey to Enneagram was a journey of me finding myself out of my depth with a team of 35, with three very small children at home, navigating things like building a building, navigating COVID, and having thousands of patients who I needed to be able to handle the complexity of their cases as well as help my team support them in the most positive way possible. And I found myself at certain points in that 11 years burning out at a rapid clip, just unable to handle the pressure, and my own responses to the pressure. And that's what the Enneagram really helped illuminate for me. I had a friend introduce me to the Enneagram. She was watching me burn out. She was like, "Girl, here's some help." And I found that when I was digging deeper into the Enneagram, it was able to expose my own reactions, my own habitual patterns that was exacerbating an already stressful situation. So, yes, if I change the external stressors, we take COVID out of the mix, we take building a building out of the mix. Yes, things are going to feel a little bit lighter, but the reality is that I was making things worse by responding in certain ways, and that's what the Enneagram helped expose for me. By exposing it for myself, I felt some relief from that burnout. I decided to get certified in the Enneagram, and then I started coaching my team members on how they could use this information to not only help their own patterns, but then also help them understand that their team members are experiencing the world in a totally different way that they are, and it's absolutely correct. So it expands their social awareness as well. I wrote a book so that they could reference information about themselves and each other during the busy workday. And now this is what I do full time: is I talk to teams, I talk to leaders on how the Enneagram can help them improve their social and self-awareness so they can build more harmonious, productive teams. So I always like to say, it wasn't, I've always been interested in personality frameworks. My dad was a manager of people and he loved the MBTI, which of course is a fantastic framework as well. And so I always knew it was a really positive thing to bring to leadership. But the Enneagram just helped me in such a dire time. And I wanted to spread that to as many people as I could as well.
Mhm. Personality, uh, personalities are just like teeth. We've all got a personality and we've all got teeth. And I've got one of these things that I still put in my mouth at age 46 to keep them all straight.
Yep.
But the thing with teeth is they're very visible. I can see yours, they're beautiful and pearly white. I'm looking at mine
Oh,
and think, I've got to hide them because I've been drinking
oh,
coffee this
stop.
morning. I've got teeth at the front, I've got teeth at the back, I've got an upper set, I've got a bottom set. We can see this. And we know each other has teeth, well, most of us. And we know we have a personality, but the personality seems to be more invisible. But
Mm,
although it's invisible, there's people that we tend to mesh with. There's people that
mm,
we find in a group and we just get along with them. And we say things to ourselves like, this person's just like me. Two peas in a pod, we're twins.
right.
And then there's other people who you just clash with. And it doesn't matter what they do in terms of behaviors, there's a form of psychological tension and you
Mm,
try to keep them at arm's reach, but you don't
mhm,
know them. You know that you don't know them, but there's something that is abrasive and rubs you up the wrong way. But then
mhm,
you have some aha moments, and some people might call it intuition, the penny drops, something clicks, and you realize that it's a behavior, but you still
mm,
can't put a name to it.
yeah.
So it's hard to predict. But with personality, I was doing some research and they've been studying people's personality for more than 2,000 years.
Yeah.
And personality is predictable. We know you're going to get a baby set of teeth. We know you're going to get your adult teeth. We know you're going to have a personality and it's going to determine how you think, how you feel, and how you act.
Mhm,
But what I read on the Enneagram is that it takes the guesswork out of it. You can use science and a formula to understand how people think, feel, and act. Would that be fair
mhm.
to say?
It would be, and I think that what's so interesting about personality frameworks, because I talk about a few of them, because there's certain personality frameworks are great for certain aspects. I know in the United
Mhm.
States We cannot use personality frameworks as part of the hiring or job placement process. That is illegal. But you can use one of my favorites. It's called the Colby Index. It's a cognitive framework. It's how we like to instinctively get things done. And so there's certain personality frameworks or cognitive frameworks that are more fitting for certain jobs that they do, but they're all asking a question. And so I think that what's interesting is that we can learn more about ourselves in certain angles by answering the question with these personality frameworks. So I always like to say we don't know someone just because we know their personality framework, but we might know why they did what they did. And we might know what they prefer in these categories of human experience or how they like to get things done. And so that's what I would say is I know that sometimes for people who are not into personality frameworks, they say, "Oh, don't put me in a box. You can't possibly know me." And to which I say, to some extent, you're correct. I can't possibly know you by just knowing your personality framework, your Enneagram type. But I might know why you did the thing that you did if I know your Enneagram type. And I might be able to walk around your world and understand it a little bit more. Hopefully, build some empathy and compassion for how you're experiencing the scenario that we're in together. Yes, I don't know you, but I'm more equipped for knowing you now because I know your Enneagram type.
Mm. What I know about humans is that they'll make a decision to do something if there's a good emotional reason and a good financial reason. And you mentioned compassion. For the business people who are considering doing an Enneagram personality profile, the latest research shows that buyers are 89% more likely to take your offer if they feel that you express compassion and empathy for them. So there's an emotional reason. Compassion and empathy are the biggest emotional drivers for a buyer. For you as a business owner, 89% higher chance that they're going to buy your product. So if you think about all the people that you've seen and you haven't sold to, there's a huge market. And oftentimes the answer is just compassion. And when you learn about your personality profile, Enneagram, Myers Briggs, DISC, you understand yourself better, but you're also more compassionate towards other.
Mhm.
And I say that because I had heard about DISC and I was in a corporate role and somebody would say, "Oh, he's a D and she's a C and that person's an S." And I heard about this stuff and I'm like, "Oh, this is garbage. I don't want to be profiled. I don't want to be put in that
Yeah,
box with all
yeah,
those people."
yeah, yeah.
And so for me, I had a really bad taste in my mouth for years. But then I met a workplace psychologist who talked about DISC. And she said, "Daniel, let's do a DISC profile for you." And she took me through my report, and it was around about 40 pages. And she said, "Daniel, this is how you approach problems and challenges." And I said, "Yes, that's me." And I said, "Am I allowed to be like that?" She said, "Of course.
Yeah,
You're allowed to be any way that you want. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad." She said, "You're aggressive. You're competitive." I said, "Yes, that's me. I'm an Australian champion athlete. I've competed at the extreme games. I just want to win." And I said, "Am I allowed to do that?" She said, "Of course." And I said, "Well, in my time in corporate, I felt that I couldn't be like that.
yeah,
I had to collaborate. I couldn't compete." She said,
right.
"No, that's not you. You're wearing a mask." And I went, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." Then she said, "This is your I style and this is your S style." And she said, "Daniel, you are discontented." And I said, "I don't even know what that word means." She said, "Well, Daniel, even if you won, even if you achieved your goal and went 10% over, you still wouldn't be satisfied." And I said, "Yes, that's me. Is that okay?" She said, "Of course it's okay." And so by the end of this time that I spent with her going through my profile, I started to appreciate myself. And once I appreciated myself, I could see the difference in other people. And then she said to me, "Daniel, have you heard of the golden rule?" And I said, "Yes, treat others the way that you want to be treated." She said, "Do you think everybody wants to be treated in an aggressive, competitive manner?" And I said, "No." She said, "Well, you've got to learn to treat other people the way that they want to be treated." So I looked at my report, I looked at other people's report, and I said, "I get it. I can be me, and I can also treat others the way that they want to be treated."
Mhm.
And then in the following 100 days, my sales went up by $100,000.
Mhm.
It worked.
Yeah.
And it was having that compassion, it was having the empathy for myself, but also for
Mhm.
other people's styles. So if you're a business
Absolutely.
owner and you want to lead a team, you got to understand their personality preferences. And all businesses can't remain flat, they've got to grow. And this gives you an opportunity to also increase your revenues.
Mhm.
It's my experience with personality profiles.
Absolutely. And I love too that somehow we have gotten a message that it's not okay to be how we are. And these personality frameworks are coming out and saying, no, it's great. It's absolutely great how you are naturally. There's no more reason for us to take parts of ourselves that come to us instinctively and push them to the outside to be banished out of our conscious knowledge. It's the job of the personality framework to help us bring those aspects of ourselves back to center so we can look at them and then accept it and decide how we want to shepherd ourselves better. It's not about changing ourselves. It's about, like you said, growing in our compassion for the other people, that they are also navigating this societal pressure to be different, but then also feeling that pull of who we actually are. So once we can grow in our empathy and compassion for somebody else, like you said, we can connect with other people. So it's not about changing fundamentally who we are, not being competitive, being more collaborative when maybe we want to be doing our best and going 20% over our goal. But it's about shepherding ourselves better, especially with other people.
Mm. There's 9 Enneagram types. What are they connected to? What do they do best? What primary emotions do they experience? And what are some of the shortfalls with each of the styles?
hmm So I can go around the circle. So we always start with our type 8. And what I'll highlight for our type for each of the types is I'm going to talk about the core motivation. And that is the crux of the Enneagram. Is the Enneagram is not talking about what we prefer. It's not talking about our behavior. It's not even talking about our action modes or necessarily dictating patterns that we always do. It's saying all the things that we do can be boiled down to our core motivation about why we did it. And what's interesting is for each person, that expression of the why will be different depending on our gender, our socioeconomic status, our past, our current situations, how comfortable we feel with the people around us. So many things can get kind of change depending on who we are as people. But the core motivation, there are 9 of those. For the Enneagram, the core motivation is comprised of 4 different elements. So it's going to be our core fear, our core desire, our core weakness, and our core longing. Just because I'll go through all 9, I'll just focus on 3 of them. So we always start with our type 8. Our type 8 is our active controller. That's the name we give to it. We can also say things like the challenger. The core fear is being controlled, blindsided, or manipulated. This is something that isn't just inconvenient if it happened. This is literally the worst case scenario. So a lot of their behavior is about avoiding this core fear of being controlled. Their core desire is to maintain control over themselves and protect those in their inner circle. And their core weakness is excess in their desire to not be controlled and to protect themselves and the people in their circle. They just overdo it. They overdo the activity, the intensity, whatever it is they feel like they can do to help them feel in control. That is what they're going to do times 10. So that's lots of energy for our type 8s. The next
I
is
think
our,
I know one of those people.
yeah.
My cousin.
Just oh, so this is the fun part about the Enneagram is that it does have a party game element to it that a lot of times we'll say if something bugs you about an Enneagram type or it's kind of hits home or maybe you can recognize people, make note of that. It could be yourself, it could be a family member, a friend, or a high school bully, something that like resonates. You're saying, I see that core desire and that core weakness and core fear like resonating out there in the real world. So make note of those. So the next is our type 9. This is our adaptive peacemaker. So this is somebody who's right next door to our type 8, and their core fear is being in conflict or separation from the people that they love. So their core desire is then to be uh, inner stability and peace of mind, and also keeping that connection with the people around them. Because of that, their core weakness is sloth, meaning that they go to sleep to their own desires and merge with the people around them so that they can have that connection and peace of mind. The next up is our type 1. This is our strict perfectionist. This is our core fear of being bad,
You gonna talk
incompetent.
about my wife?
Oh, no. I think you're talking about your wife. Strict perfectionist. Core fear is being bad, incompetent, or lacking integrity. Core desire is to be good, virtuous, and having balance and integrity. Their core weakness is going to be resentment. They feel like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, constantly being perfect. This isn't just perfect in the small things. This is perfect in everything: the parking spots, the parenting, the decision, the dinner that they made, whatever it is, they have to be perfect. And they look at everybody else who feels like they're doing a half measure effort, and they feel resentment because of it. The next, now we're talking about our type 2, who is our considerate helper. This is the core fear of being rejected, unwanted, or unloved. Their core desire is to be wanted, loved, and appreciated. The core weakness is pride. This does not mean that type 2 think that they are better than other people, but that they don't have needs and other people have needs. So they're constantly denying their own needs so that they can help other people and will be wanted by the people around them. Our next up is our type 3, who is our competitive achiever. This person is, the core fear is being worthless or appearing unsuccessful. Core desire is to be successful and worthwhile. So these are our people in the United States. We are a type 3 country. We want to get things done and we want to look good doing it. So we want things to look easy. We're very, very competitive and image conscious country.
The new
I'm not quite.
car, the new watch, the new suit,
Yeah,
hair's constantly done, the
exactly.
makeup's on.
Yep, exactly. I always like to think of a positive, at least for me, example of this would be Taylor Swift, the girl who is
Mhm.
working her tail off, but she is making it look easy when she's on
Mm.
stage doing her Eras tour for a year and a half. That girl worked so hard.
Winning all the Grammy awards, all the
Oh,
trophies.
exactly, exactly. Well, a beautiful smile and a very like easygoing. Yeah, hey, there you go. And the core weakness of our type 3 is deceit. And it doesn't mean that they're lying to other people. They lie to themselves, that they care about all of those achievements that they are running after, and that they are the person that they project. It's all about saying, please see me as successful. That is what's going to make me feel worthwhile. So our type
Mm.
4 is our intense creative, and this is a person who the core fear is being defective or ordinary, and their core desire, that thing they're constantly running towards, is to be their authentic self and special. So they want to feel like they aren't boring and ordinary. They want to feel special. These are our classic tortured artists. They are our Prince, or our the artist Prince, or Johnny Depp, somebody who just expresses
Amy
themselves in a very.
Winehouse.
Yes, exactly. Yes, a
Mm.
very creative display of themselves. Their core weakness is envy, where they feel like other people were born with something that they are missing, and it makes them stand on the periphery of human experience, looking in. They feel other, but that also makes them feel special. So they are constantly running towards wanting to be part of things, but also not wanting to be part of the pack. They want to be different. So our type 5 is our quiet specialist. These are people who the core fear is being incompetent or invaded, depleted of energy. They are hyper rationalist people. They do not want to be inundated by emotional things. Their core desire is to be competent and to kind of build a shield around themselves to protect their energy. Their core weakness is avarice. It doesn't mean that they're hoarding them, physical resources, but they hoard themselves. They're constantly trying to pull themselves away from human experience so they're not depleted of energy because of it. Um, Examples of this
Sounds
would
like
be
my grandmother. She had
yes,
a big fence around her house, and we thought it was to keep the people out. but it was to
Yes.
contain herself inside.
Yes, true, true. So it's like that the world feels very overwhelming. And so it's constantly
Mm,
about trying to not be overwhelmed by this very overwhelming world, and being very hyper rational because emotional things are the most overwhelming. I think of people like Albert Einstein or Agatha Christie. These would be people who are hyper rationalists in their mind palace, very creative, but very averse to being inundated by the outside world. We then have our type six. This is the loyal skeptic. These are people who core fear is to be physically abandoned, not supported, or blamed. And their core desire is to find that perfect level of safety and support. And their core weakness is anxiety. It's this scanning the horizon for potential threats and having plans A through Z, maybe for things that never happen. It's very exhausting for them because when they are stressed, this anxiety, the scanning, why am I stressed? Why am I stressed? Searching Instagram, why am I stressed looking for the things that so they can have plans for all these things that are never going to happen. And then finally, we have our type seven. This is our enthusiastic visionary. Core fear is being limited, trapped in emotional pain, or bored. And their core desire is to be happy, fully satisfied, and content. Their core weakness is gluttony. Our type sevens feel like if they experience those emotions that are a little bit more complex than happiness or contentment, that they're not going to have support to deal with it and they don't feel like they can handle it, so they distract themselves as a way of dealing with emotions. In other words, not dealing with emotions. So they get out into the outside world and take in all the stimulation. These are our classic FOMO. I can't miss out on the fun things because that fun thing might have made me feel like I could just rest and be content where I am. So that's a quick rundown of the nine types. And what's important to know is that certain behaviors can be shared among people who say we have two type eights. There might be some shared behaviors, but each of us have certain patterns that grow. It's like that core fear, core desire, that's the seed. And what grows out of that are patterns that we can uncover for ourselves to make better decisions.
mm, fascinating. I'm going around the circle, and I'm thinking some of this is me.
Yeah.
That's not so much me.
Yeah.
That's definitely my wife. I said I was at the we have thermal baths here in Taiwan, and I was at the baths, and they have a sign in Chinese, and it says, uh, "Happiness is cleanliness."
Uh-huh.
And so I sent a photo of that to her because she has a lot of these perfectionistic traits.
Yes.
She also has some of the traits of that individualist,
Hmm.
and and she wants to be flawless. And so if we're going out, I'll stir her up and I'll say, "Sweetheart, you've got a crease in your blouse,
Oh
or the
gosh.
makeup's not done properly, or there's a grey hair showing." And she so wants to be flawless that it does something to the emotions, and she's back inside to fix it up. And then, these other things, yeah, I I've seen that anxiety in myself, I've seen it in others. So I can see myself in a little bit of some, and some of the things I go, that's not so much me.
Yeah.
I completed your Enneagram personality profile, a very short version of it. Uh, I'm interested to figure out what traits are strongest in me because I
Hmm.
want to figure it out. So after this podcast, I can say to my wife, this is my Enneagram type.
Yeah,
What showed up in
absolutely.
my report?
So what showed up in your report was the highest was our enthusiastic visionary, our type 7. So that core fear of being trapped in emotional pain, limited or bored. So this idea of not being able to get out and experience all the world and distract yourself, that is something that is a core fear. The core desire being happy, fully satisfied, and content. The core weakness being gluttony, constantly getting out and grabbing more little bits of stimulation so that you don't have to experience that emotional pain you don't feel like you have support for. That was the number one. But in the Enneagram,
I've been an expatriate for 20 years.
you've been what?
An
Yeah.
expatriate for 20
Yes.
years. I don't want to go
Yeah.
home. People say, "When are you coming home?" I said, "I don't want to come home. I'm having too much
Yeah.
fun." "Why do you live in Taiwan?" Because it's loud." "Why do you live in the
Yeah.
Middle East?" "Because there's bombs dropping." It's
Oh,
exciting.
dude. Oh gosh. Yes.
Ah,
Yes. And your number two was the challenger. So the person with the core fear of being controlled. or
Mm,
blindsided or manipulated. Core desire is to maintain control of yourself and protect those in your inner circle. The very similar weakness in that the weakness is excess, meaning whatever you do, you just kind of do it a little bit too much for yourself and for the people around you. So I've had friends who are type 8s, and they are the people who are, they enjoy road biking. They road bike every single day. The people who enjoy school, they get 5 masters. They are constantly doing things to not be controlled. But what's important to know to help you discover which one of those, now they're both next to each other, so they actually can be wings of each other, is what is the core fear that if this is what happened, this is literally the worst case scenario. It's not just something that would be inconvenient if it happened, but it would feel like death. That is why all your behaviors are going to be growing out of either not being controlled or not being limited. And they can feel very different. There's nuance there. And that's the important part about the Enneagram, is that sometimes you're not going to walk away from taking a test or even having a narrative typing session and saying, I know for sure what my type is. What you will though walk away is saying, but I know where to look. I know
mm.
I'm going to watch the patterns that are growing out of this, and I'm going to spend the time to go a level deeper and say, I avoided this because I didn't want to be controlled, or I avoided this because I didn't want to be trapped in that emotional pain.
Well, I say to my clients, I hate your competition more than you do. And when you hire me as a consultant, we're gonna kill the competition. They say, Daniel, you can't kill anybody. So we're not going to do it physically. We're just going to do it financially, and we're going to win
Yes.
all the sales, and they're going to have to shut shop. And they look at me and they go, gee, you're brave. And I say, well, they piss me off because every time they win a sale, it hurts me and it hurts you.
Yes.
And it is excessive for me. A couple of examples. One of my mentors, he wrote 85 books. I would fly backwards and forwards from Singapore to what's called Brass Bassa Complex to buy 10 of these books at a time, and I'd fly back to the Middle East. Then I'd go another trip, I'd get another 10 books. And I went there about a dozen times until I found all of his books and read them all. And then I found another mentor, and he had written about 72 books. And I have been reading his book since I was 19. And if I look behind me, I've probably about 200,000 different papers, research papers in my cupboard. And I obsess. If I want to study one topic, it's not one article or two, it's 100 or 200 or 300. And somebody gave me a very nice compliment recently. I was in Taiwan, and a businessman, very successful, business with hundreds of millions of dollars in revenues a year. He said, Daniel, you've got a great personality. You're obsessive. He said, are you on the spectrum? I said, well, I used to be. I said, I don't know about now, but that's a lovely compliment. He said, I don't know if it was supposed to be a compliment. And I said, well, I am obsessive. I am like that. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So
Yes.
7, 8, my kids would have been happy if it was 6, 7, but 7, 8.
Ah, oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly. What does that even mean? Yes, absolutely. And I would say that, if we talk about strengths of our type 8, which it sounds
Mm.
very much type 8s are types that are more comfortable with conflict. They're straight shooters. They're willing to cut kind of the candy coating and get down to the heart of things. They are never
We in Australia,
mean-spirited
we
people.
say, no beating around the bush,
Yes.
no bullshit.
Yep. Right. Right.
Hit the
Just
nail on
cutting
the head.
exactly, just cutting down to it. Now, these are people who will come off very intense because they've got a lot of energy. Um, but they are what we call in the Enneagram marshmallows wrapped in barbed wire, because they have a gigantic heart for the people in their world, and they would do anything for them, including being their champions and helping them, but also encouraging them to stand up for themselves. So our type 8s are incredible leaders. And in fact, we frequently will see them as the archetype of the fearless leader, our Winston Churchills, our Martin Luther King Juniors, who are visionaries of what could be, and have a lot of energy and courage behind them to take steps in faith for this vision that maybe they're the only ones that can see that. Some drawbacks to that, though, is they don't understand that the people
Did
around
my
them.
wife tell you that I cry when my customers get hurt?
Oh,
She didn't tell you, did she?
no,
That's the
she didn't.
marshmallow.
But that
If
is,
they
it
get if
is.
they're hurt, I'm hurt as well.
Yes,
If the baby
absolutely.
elephant dies at the zoo, I'm the first one crying.
Absolutely. And this is consistent for me with my 8 clients. So they're typically very, direct, straight shooter people, but they are usually the people in my sessions who will tear up at some point, especially if something comes around the people in their world where they have put so much heart to protecting these people. And when they talk about them, it is the first thing that comes up is emotion of gratitude and love for these people in their lives. So um, they can be very intense. They don't understand that other people around them are frequently more laid back than they are. Uh, but that's
I don't know why people go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. Why aren't you working till 2 o'clock in the morning?
oh gosh, yes, they
Why aren't you obsessed? Why do you have passions? Why do you have hobbies?
right, right, absolutely. So they don't necessarily they have to be reminded that people might not have as much energy as they do. They might not have as much intensity, and they might not have as much capacity for taking intensity either. So they experience other people might experience it differently. But these are fantastic leaders, and they are fantastic with their teams, especially if they can tap into and express that vulnerable side of them with the people in their world. They become much more approachable, much softer, and much more relatable as well.
Mm. I like your word shepherding, and I've guided 25,000 people through my programs. And I know as type 8, I want success sometimes for them more than they want it for themselves.
Mm,
And when they set their goals and they quit, which 95% of people do, I take it so personally to think
yes.
that you haven't just quit on you, you've quit on life. And they
Yeah.
look at my intensity and sometimes it scares them. And so
Yes.
I've got to remind myself just to chill out, relax.
Yeah.
It's their life.
Yep.
I'm just the
Yeah.
shepherd. I'm just the guide. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep you on the path. I'm going to point out where the wolves are. I'm going to get you through the Red Sea to the promised land, but you got to walk. And
Yep.
that's been a big learning for me. And in the early days, it was overly intense,
Yeah.
but now it's been tempered. And I say it's
Hmm.
okay. I'm allowed to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I don't have to wake up being the 5 a.m. club. I'm allowed to sleep till 6
Yep.
and I don't have to push people.
Yeah.
I've got to
Absolutely.
find what they want because it's
Hmm.
not always what I want. That's been a big lesson.
Absolutely. As somebody who is more on the helping side, and that my pattern is to step in and say, "Oh, you're struggling? Let me do it for you. Let me come in." My the thing that I say to myself is the person who does the work does the learning, and I then have to take a step back and not burn out because I am jumping in and fixing things for people. So it's amazing how certain patterns can grow. It has this almost this similar effect, but it came from a different seed. And so if we can get down to what that seed is behind these patterns that we developed to make sense of our world, to gain that safety, love, and belonging that we're constantly looking for as little people, then we can start undoing some of these patterns, just one small choice at a time. Getting up at 6, saying, I don't have to get up and try to motivate you or ask you to be something other than you are. I can rest and show up in the
Mm.
way that is best for me and for you as a client. So that's the powerful part about personality is that sometimes it can just show us the patterns that are driving us into the ground and
Mm.
give us an opportunity to make small changes that will
Mm.
help us show up better.
You said something interesting there about the giver type, wanting to get in there and do it with them or do it for them. I had a client who started a consulting business and they got out of consulting and they got into coaching. And their consulting business had been very successful, but they became a coach and their customers dropped off and they didn't get as many applications for the program. And it makes more sense now because for them, when they were a giver and they were a consultant, they were paid to do the work. And so it was a perfect fit for their style. But coaching, it's like a personal trainer. I pay you to show me how to do push ups or sit ups. I'm not paying you to do them for me. The coachee has to do the work. And when they got into coaching, they were trying to do it for the client. And the client said, no, this is not what I want. I
Mhm.
just want the guide. I want
Mhm.
the shepherd. And once they went back to consulting, their stress levels dropped, their
Yeah.
income went up, and it was a better fit for their personality. And that makes more sense now that you mention this is a trait of the giver. That's how I
Mhm.
start to see it.
Mhm. Absolutely. And sometimes it's knowing what your particular personality is, and sometimes you can predict that. I know that I would never do great with only working with numbers all day because I'm so relational. Sometimes you can predict what it is, and sometimes it's taking a time in that profession and saying, this just isn't my personality, and taking a step out of it and having a little bit more of that adventurous spirit to say we can make changes midway
Mm,
through something based on, and it's totally okay that this is not your thing, that there's nothing wrong with you, that coaching is not your thing but consulting is. There's nothing wrong with you for wanting to not work with people or work with people. It's just how it is. So how are you going to show up better and play to your strengths and mitigate those weaknesses?
mm. I feel that that challenger type and the perfectionist have a type of conflict because when I used social media before ChatGPT and things like Grammarly, I would put my post out there. It's on top of my mind, tip of the tongue. I'm going to put it out there on social media. I don't care about full stops. I don't care about grammar. I
Yeah.
don't care about where the I goes in there, there, or there. I'm just going to put it out there.
Hmm.
And it must have been all the perfectionists who got pissed off because they'd write to me and say, Daniel, you've made a spelling mistake. Daniel, your grammar's terrible. And they'd be the first ones to message me. And they'd say,
Yes.
if you want me to proofread your post, you're more than welcome because you've made a lot of mistakes and people are going to see it. And I'd shoot them back a message. I'd say, do you watch my videos? I'd say, yes. And I'd say, did I make any spelling mistakes when I was talking?
Yeah.
And they'd send back a question mark. Like, what was that? Like,
What
that's
was
really,
that?
really aggressive.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel that these two types probably have a conflict here.
Hmm.
One's just saying, 50, if we get it right 51% of the time, we can break the bank.
Yeah.
And the other one's saying, hey, we've got to get it right 110% of the
Yes.
time
Yeah. Yeah.
or we're going to make a mistake.
Right.
And a
Absolutely.
little bit of tension here.
Absolutely. And this is a huge gift of personality frameworks, and specifically the Enneagram, is the conflict. Not only just the trigger points, which is what you're talking about, for our type 8, it's saying, I've got all this energy, I've got a great idea, let's get it done now. Let's get it done 15 minutes ago. And the type 1 saying, let's slow it down. Let's make sure it's perfect. Because if it's perfect, only then can it be good. Where the type 8 is much more, if it's done, it's good.
Mm,
And so it's noticing those trigger points. So if we know what a person's core fear and core desire is, we know that anything that makes them think that core fear is going to happen or the core desire is not going to happen, that's a trigger. So for a type 8, anything that would make you feel like somebody is lying to you, manipulating you, going to blindside you, going to control you, that's going to come a trigger. Now that's going to be, that could look like somebody cutting in front of you, driving to work. It could be somebody, messaging somebody and you think that maybe they're not being as authentic as they could be. It could be triggers like that, or it could be a whole number of things, but it comes down to what the message is underneath. And so for the type 1, then, of course, it's going to be anything that makes them think they're going to look incompetent or bad or defective. Um, these are going to be things that are going to get them riled up. So that's one huge benefit of the Enneagram, is that just knowing somebody's type, you know that you're going to need to say thank you to a type 2, because being unappreciated is going to make them hit the roof.
mm,
This is a huge benefit, but there's also conflict styles built in as well. So, more assertive conflict styles like type 8s or type 3s or type 7s, and more compliance conflict styles like types 1s, 2s, and 6s. So, there's lots of other nuance to the Enneagram that can help you navigate specifically conflict just by knowing somebody else's type.
Mm. Which is the type that's more artistic or they just want to do it their way? What type's that?
Oh, I feel like that's a lot of types, and it really depends. I would say if you are looking at something that is just out there a little bit unique, I would say we're
Mm.
talking our type fours. So our
Okay.
type fours are extremely creative. And part of the reason they're creative is they're very in touch with who they are and they are not plagued with people pleasing. So they don't care if people like it or not. They're all about personal expression. And the benefit of that is that we get very unique expressions. Though I will say type fives can be insanely creative as well.
Mm.
Again, kind of because they're living in their own world a little bit. But doing it
This
my way, I would say our type 8s, our type 3s, our type 7s, um, those are big do it my way.
the type 4, and this is gonna put me in the time machine and take me back many years.
Yeah.
We had a family business, and it was a pawnbroking business, and in my mind, I'm trying to figure out now what style Enneagram this tattoo artist had. So I don't have any
Mm,
tattoos, but I'm thinking that if I wanted to get a tattoo, I probably want to get a perfectionist. Somebody
yeah,
who's going to get the tattoo done right the first time, because as we
right.
know, tattoos are pretty permanent.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking one of our customers must have a type 4 tattooist.
Yeah,
I'll,
could be.
I'll give you the story. Everybody will understand this, the picture in their mind. This gentleman came in to our shop and he'd been coming in for years and he had an accident and he got a big compensation payout. So he started to spend big. And one of the things that he spent money on was a tattoo. And tattoos, I think a lot of people don't realize that they can be very expensive. I've got a
Yes.
friend who's a tattoo artist and he was charging $500 an hour, something like 15 or 20 years ago. But he's definitely a type
Wow.
1. This gentleman who was coming into our shop, he decided that he was going to get a sword tattooed on his arm. And the sword went from his elbow to his shoulder blade. And he came in and he showed my brother and I the sword tattoo. And I looked at my brother and I said, "Is that what I think it is?" And my brother Ben's looking at it and he said, "I don't think it's a sword." And I said, "What do you think it is?" He said, "I think it's a phallus." So we're looking at this tattoo and it goes up and then the shape changes at the top and it looks like a phallus. And I said, "This guy's been ripped off." And whoever
Um,
had designed that tattoo in their own mind, bringing creativity to it, I don't think they realized what they made it look like. It
yes,
was supposed to
right.
look like a blade, but the head of it looked like something else. And my
Oh,
brother and I,
no.
we would cringe every time he came in because he was so proud of his tattoo. He'd always wear a singlet. So I'm thinking that if I get a tattoo, which I won't, I haven't in 46 years, I don't plan to get one. But if I do, I'm going to get the tattoo artist to complete an Enneagram profile. If they're a type 4, they're fine. If they're type 1, perfectionist, they're my new friend.
Right. Right, right. Oh, wow. And it is, yes. I mean, and it's important to know too that we can all have similar hangups. So just because you have anxiety, you could have an anxiety disorder. It doesn't mean that you're a type 6.
Mm,
We especially, you know, again, living in the United States, there's a lot of competitive achievers here, but there's also a lot of other types who have success as something that's just hounding them constantly because of the society that we live in. And perfectionism is another one that a lot of types can be perfectionists and struggle with perfectionism. Type ones, though, are going to have a double hit of it. So they're going to be both trying to be perfect so that they can be good and also trying to be perfect so they can fit societal norms or struggling with other parts of perfectionism as well. So, but yes, I would say if I wanted to get a tattoo, I would want somebody who was upholding the core fears and core desires of a type one. I want them to
mm.
be trying to be competent and as balanced and virtuous as possible and adhering to certain norms and doing their darndest to be perfect. if something's going to be inked onto my body.
There's a lot of factors there, isn't there? You get these type A personalities who are obsessed with results.
Yes,
America's a meritocracy. You get rewarded based on results.
right.
And then you've got your Enneagram types. And then you've got your teeth, which are absolutely stunning. And I've been drinking
Oh,
coffee and I'm trying to hide mine.
oh
I'm
no,
thinking, now I've got to compete with Kimberly and I've got to get some new
no,
teeth
no, no, there's never
because I'm a
no.
challenger and now I've got to compete. Mine have got to be wider than yours.
Well, feel free to change a filter. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us. For people who would like to take your free online Enneagram test, where can they go?
They can go to my website, which is enneagramreflections.com, and you can take one for
Excellent.
free and learn more about coaching for yourself and your teams.
Kimberly, thank you for your time.